All right. Hopefully this gets. Yeah, that little thing up there is kind of weak, and yeah, it doesn't hold everything up the way it's supposed to. Today's Thursday. Sorry, my tummy's like a little rumbly. Today's Thursday, but man, it is slow. This week is slow to me. Anyhow, make sure you join the Discord, which is going to be down in the description box below. It reminds me, I need to say good morning to the folks on Discord. I think I tried to, and something was acting up. Sometimes I have internet issues now with everybody working from home, not only in this area, but even in the house. So it was really bad when the girls were in school and they actually had to do schoolwork from home. It just was not good. But Noelle is she took about a week and a half off just because she wanted to just get a break. And so it wasn't so bad. Today she's back at work, and yeah, so those delays. Yeah, see, I'm trying to log in, won't let me do it. Um, let's try it this way. It doesn't matter. But anyway, so today she is back, and so it's really delaying a lot of things. But you don't really care. That's not really what this video is about. This video is an Ask HershNoeie, and this is Hey Hirsch. You talked a lot about stocks and what to do in terms of financial gain. What are your thoughts about generational wealth, and how can we achieve it? They go on to talk about a couple other different things. This is a black lady. She wants to know what to teach her children about that. I mean, that's a great question, right? Because I have talked about things that, I think individuals should do. Young black men. I've had men who are about my age who will say, I'm starting to do some of these things because, I no one really talked to us about that. You know what I mean? Like, investing in yourself. And investing in yourself is a lot of different things. It's not just one thing. Some people will say, no, education's silly, or no, you don't have to do it that way. But given today's economy and society, especially living on this side of the country, you see where education gets you and where the lack thereof does get you. I'm not saying always in every circumstance, obviously, but there's a reason why Seattle is the most educated big city in the country, right? It is almost a darn near requirement given the way that what jobs pay, the cost of living, you throw all those things in there and you start to think that, yeah, if you don't have a skill, a specialized skill or a specialized skill or trade, you are kind of out there. And then we get into the whole situation of affordable housing and how that's becoming such a difficult thing for cities because the cost of everything goes up dramatically here. And what was a great program last year that would have addressed a lot of issues is already outdated because everything climbs so quickly. There's a video that comes on that I'm going to do after this that talks about just how quickly Tacoma is growing to the point of where I can't even keep up with the number of projects that the city is, not the city, but developers are doing. It is insane. We've been hit by Seattle developers now, which has been kind of the case throughout time, but it's been really a focus now. We have several different ones coming into the city. But with that said, you want to make sure you invest in yourself. Education is key, whether you go to trade school or college. College is preferable, especially when we're talking about black people and black men specifically. There's not a lot of black men that are entering into college. You don't have a spotlight focused on it, and it's not something that's talked about much at all. And so that's something that I really, really try to push. Even if you go in and just get a general education degree, get some sort of a degree, right? Get into some sort of a trade. Again, there's tons of them. In this city, we have access to a lot of different things: trade schools, community college, universities, that type of thing. You want to have a skill that is always in demand and that is needed. Get your passport. That is a big investment too, because you're able to, when some of the sickness kind of hopefully goes away, you're able to travel to different parts of the world and see what the world is like. Make sure that you eat very, very good, eat healthy, drink healthy, exercise, do those types of things. Mental awareness, mental games, like strategy puzzles, things like that. I will even go as far as de-stress, because it's life in general is stressful, especially for anybody, but especially for young Black people, young Black men in particular. It can be kind of stressful. Sometimes it feels like we don't have a friend in the world. So those are things I would say are key. Buying land, key. Investing in stocks, very key. Someone asked me, what about your investments? Like, any advice that you have? And I don't have a specific strategy. I don't want to tell people like, do this, do that, and then they end up losing money, and that's like they're looking at me like, hey, dude. But I invest in many, many different companies. Some very well known, some that are not. But I am not the person that's going to be able to give you sound advice on investments like that. It's not what I do. Cryptocurrency is also something that folks invest in, and I would say is a key thing. One of the big things, if you're talking about generational wealth, is owning homes. I talk about owning land, which is key. Some people say, but why land? Why own it? Because it does a couple of different things. While you're alive, it's great for collateral, right? Even if you never step foot on that land, you own it, and it is collateral. You're leaving something behind if something happens to you, right? So your children are able to rely on that the same way that you could have, by saying like, okay, I have a bit of land that's somewhere that my parents left me, and so I need to get a car, get a house. I need something to, or start a business. And so that's important. Having land is key for that. Having a business is another access to generational wealth. A lot of the wealth that you see in society and people living out in the burbs, some of those people is generational wealth, because they had parents or grandparents or whatever's who had a business that was passed down and passed down and passed down, or they reaped the rewards of that business. I know of a few people who their parents had owned a business, but they're not feeling it. It's not their passion. So, but they're reaping the benefits of it, because then they're able to sell that business and they're able to direct that money however they see fit. So that's access to generational wealth. One of the big things that I think is key, that is so important, is really, really investing in you. All those things I mentioned help keep up maintenance, right? So eating healthy and getting your mind right, stay away from the trouble, the issues, the problems, people not having your back. Be selfish, focus on you. That's kind of maintaining yourself. But when we're talking about like trying to increase your money, having many different revenue streams is key. Many different side hustles, gigs, whatever you want to call it. There are people who have their main job like I do, but they have other little side things that they do, and they have their own business. They have all these different things. So you have a lot of different candles lit at one time, and it is keeping the flame going, keeping the wax buildup going, and moving forward. That will allow you to be comfortable. Right now, Noelle and I are pretty comfortable. You see what I'm saying? We don't have huge debts. We're just comfortable in terms of what we bring in, what we're able to do. But it took a while to actually get to that point. And so you want to do that now. Then you want to be able to say, okay, what about our kids? So we want to have something for them to actually have. So that would include, like I said, businesses, land, houses. Homes are very, very important. Even if you had a little rambler house that wasn't that big, 800 square feet, that home is so important, because the value of that home typically goes up. And so that your children, there you may have 2 or 3 kids, they may be crammed together in that house, but that's something that you can leave to them and say, look, I have this house. There are people who do that all the time. There are people here who have vacation homes or second home or third home, and their kids grow up and they get married and they say, you know what, here's my gift to you guys. I have that house. It's not the best house in the world. It's a 2 bedroom or it's a whatever, but it's yours. And so that is a huge leg up, because those kids, your kids now don't have to worry about a huge payment. Some of the biggest issues right now for people in terms of just money out are automobiles, which lose value, and a home. Those are where a lot of your money goes into. And so if you can alleviate one or both, then you're doing very, very well. So one of the keys to generational wealth is seeing if you're able to have some sort of a home that is in addition to your own. Having your own is top, obviously. Try not to rent as much as possible, because you're basically giving your money to someone else who pays their mortgage and pays for their own investments. Invest in you if you can. And that's why I tell folks, don't go for the bells and whistles and the blings of a house. Get a decent house, not one that's falling apart, of course, but get a house where you have to do some improvements if you need to, and sit on that, ride the equity up. A lot of people get that so confused, and they fall in love with what their eyes are seeing, but they're not thinking with their head. And so it's a short-term thing. And that is what a lot of people have said over time. Wealthy people like Warren Buffett and other folks, you want to make sure you do things the correct way to get the biggest bang for your buck. Trust me. The one thing I do want to say is, I don't know this person, but there is someone who is a comedian. He's not super well known, but their kid became old enough to drive, and they got their kid a luxury car. Now, this is someone who said, finally made it, took a while, a lot of sacrifice, and I believe them. It's a black man. And he bought his kid a luxury vehicle, which is stupid, in my opinion, right? Here's the reason why. Most vehicles out there, unless it's a classic. And now with the way that it's hard to find chips and stuff for brand new cars, used cars are holding their value pretty good. Some of them are worth a lot. But generally, cars are going to depreciate dramatically, right? They just will. They're not an asset. They're a liability all day long, unless you come in contact with some extreme classic car or something like that, or some famous person owned this particular vehicle, something like that. But most people, a car is a waste of money. And when you go and buy a luxury vehicle, that typically is what you're doing, is paying for a brand or a label. It's just like with clothes. Clothes are not of any value, really, unless you have a bag. Some of these women have $25,000 handbags that hold a lot of value. But the vast majority of people are not going to have access to that. You see, do you get what I'm saying? It's kind of like if you bought a brand new Lamborghini. That Lamborghini is still going to depreciate some, but it's going to hold its value for a heck of a long time versus a Honda Accord, right? Honda Accord, the value's still going to drop, but it's like, it's not worth going out and getting a BMW, just a regular middle of the road BMW or Mercedes, because the value of those do not hold. It's not worth it. It's not worth shelling out huge bunches of money for a car just because of the emblem that's stamped on it. And they're not always the best performing, longest lasting cars. And you got to think of maintenance. Some of these cars, they look great, but then when you have to do maintenance on them, oil changes, changing out the tires, they're much more expensive because of the stamp that's stamped onto them, or they require certain specific things. So it's always just draining money out just to look good. And so to me, it's not, my view is that's not teaching that person's son about the value of money. Now, people can do whatever they want to with their money, but this is not generational wealth. Buying a luxury car, or what's considered to be a luxury car, it's a lower end luxury car, right? Lexus, BMW, Mercedes, that's what I'm talking about. But it's not teaching the value of money or generational wealth. And this is a big problem in our community, especially because it's not an investment in a business or an investment in stocks or an investment in something that's going, or a savings bond or any of that. It's probably a squirrel. There's squirrels that trip that all the time, and birds. It's not that. It is spending it on something that's not worth it. Also, for a first car, a lot of teenagers, I luckily didn't, knock on wood, but for many teenagers wreck their first car. And this could be just flossing. It may not even be that that's that kid's car, but that's just what they're claiming. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But my point is that to me, it doesn't make sense. I look at that and just kind of shake my head and say, that's really the wrong way to go. Dressing up in the latest clothing is a big waste of money, time, and resources. If you look at the really wealthy folks that are out there, they don't do that. No matter the age, from Jeff Bezos being a little bit older, or Warren Buffett, which is being old, and Bill Gates, all the way down to someone who, and I shouldn't say down, but I'm talking about an age, Mark Zuckerberg. Those people don't buy labels. And they got tons of money. They just don't. Because when you understand, one of the big things that growing up in Kentucky, we would go up to northern Kentucky outside of Cincinnati, and there was a big, huge, giant warehouse. And these were where you could go and get clothes that didn't make it into the store. So you had Gap, you had Banana Republic, and you had Old Navy, and you had a bunch of other stuff, right? All of these were clothes where maybe there was a strand, a fiber that stuck out. Well, that got rejected. So otherwise, the shirt was great. So instead of paying $20 in Old Navy for it, you could go there and pay 38 cents. Literally. Pants. Maybe the pant leg was just a little off. Didn't pass quality control, or maybe the seam was kind of inverted, but it's not enough to where people would know the difference. There were some that were really bad off, but a lot of things you didn't really notice the difference. But what was funny is that Banana Republic is a much more higher, more expensive brand than, say, Old Navy and Gap, but yet they're all manufactured at the same place, and they're all dumped in the same area. So it didn't matter when you're on the wholesale type side of things. It didn't really matter because they're all the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, you're not paying more for quality. You're really not, right? There are what is it? It's Urban Outfitters is the same thing as Misguided. Basically the same store. One is super expensive and the other one is super cheap, but it's basically the same thing. It's just that people buy into that. Same thing with houses. You can make a house look extremely, or a building look extremely expensive. They've done that a lot in Seattle. When you look at a lot of the mid-rises, they make them look very expensive, and people are like, ooh. So they pay that extra high rent, but it's foolish because they're not spending more to build it, as opposed to just building a regular apartment building that's whatever. They're the same price in terms of construction costs. It's a nominal difference. There's not really a huge change to where it's like, whoa. But people buy into what they think looks best, or it's got more shine to it, or it's got more of this or whatever. But it's all trickery. So being smart with your money is actually doing some research and looking at it and saying, like, I don't need all of this in order to, I don't need that. It's not an ego or a self-esteem thing. What's an ego and a self-esteem thing for me is generational wealth. It's basically saying, look, I have plenty of things that I've done to where hopefully when I move on and Noelle moves on, the kids will be able to take what we have and they have a leg up or a leg or two up. Not much, but at least they have something to where it's not like they're just starting at the bottom like what we had to do. We started at the bottom, and so we literally just moved up. And so we're really comfortable now. But that wasn't the case. It took a lot of headaches and hard work, and still hard work. But that is what I would say in terms of that. Be smart with your money. Don't fall into the okey doke and try to, floss with clothes and jewelry and shoes and all of this nonsense, which has absolutely no true value. It just, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? To me. But anyhow, hope I answered your question. Make sure you join the Discord, which is going to be down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.